In this video, we're gonna have a look at a lot of the chess positions in the Netflix special, The Queen's Gambit. Let's take it from the top. Spoilers ahead. Here in episode 1, we can see this man playing that girl. The man is Schaibel and the girl is Elizabeth Harmon. The first ever game Elizabeth played. She had black pieces against Schaibel. e4, e5, bishop c4, knight c6 and queen f3. Queen and bishop are out. Now knight d4 looks good because it's attacking the queen and this pawn, threatening a check, attacking the king and the rook. But the problem with this move is that at least the queen takes f7 checkmate. A lot of people have fallen for this 4-move checkmate, and that is the first game that Elizabeth played. There are many ways to stop it. One way is knight f6, so then you're blocking the bishop and queen attacking the pawn. This is the next game that they play. Schaibel has white again and Elizabeth has black. e4, e6, d4 and g6. So a different setup from Elizabeth. Knight f3, queen f6. This is a common error from beginners. You get your queen out too early and your king is still in the middle. A good principle is to get your knight bishop out so then you can castle. So queen f6, an early queen move is not great. Bishop d3, so Schaibel knows what he's doing. He's going to castle next and he's got his knight and bishop out. But also he's got 2 pawns in the center. And here black played bishop g7. e5 is guarded by this pawn and white is now able to make a great move because black will not be able to hide on e7 or d8. So here, pause the video. I'll give you 5 seconds. Can you find a great move for white, just winning the queen straight away? The move is bishop g5 and here the queen has run out of squares. The next key moment in episode 1 is when Schaibel tells Elizabeth to learn the Sicilian. So we have e4 and not e5 this time but c5. And he tells her to learn 2 variations of the Sicilian, the Najdorf and the Levenfish. So let's quickly check that out now. Knight f3, d6, and now white gets a pawn in the center. The point is after a pair of pawns come off, take, now white has a knight in the center. Knight f6, black attacks the pawn in the middle and white will just defend with knight c3. And here we have g6 first. This is the Sicilian dragon. I don't think this is mentioned in episode 1, but the next move makes it the Levenfish, where white has 2 pawns in the center. This can also happen after a6, which also Schaibel mentioned. This is the Najdorf. Pawn here to guard the b5 square. Later also black can get space on this side of the board, the queen side, and f4 is still a move here. Now normally here black can react in the center. White has 2 pawns, so why not black can get his fair share of the center with 2 pawns himself in the center. Next game, Elizabeth now takes on the school teacher for the junior school, for the older school, and in that game is a very nice miniature. That is a very short game leading to checkmate. Knight f3, f5. So this is the Reti opening, but the school teacher plays f5. This is the Dutch defense. Now Elizabeth plays a very sharp line. That's why already when I'm watching this, I'm just so impressed by the research that has gone behind this show. e4, take, and now knight e5. Black can play d5 to protect the pawn. Not the best move, but let's see what happens. d3, this is the idea. Now, you may be asking, white has just chucked a pawn. You've played e4, you've put your knight in the middle, so what? You're down a pawn. But the point is, after black takes and takes, we've got a knight and bishop in the middle, and this king is feeling a draft. Notice this king cannot actually escape to d7 or to f7. Knight c6 was played by the school teacher, and now checkmate in 3 moves as Elizabeth mentioned. Queen h5 check. If that pawn wasn't there, it's checkmate. So the only good move is to block, and then she just finished it off. Bishop takes g6 check, take, and queen takes g6, checkmate. If you want to show off a little bit, you can, because you can actually sacrifice your queen. Not shown in episode 1, because after take, it's actually a checkmate with the bishop. The point is this king cannot go to d7 or to f7, guarded by the knight on e5, and that is checkmate. The final, the best game in this episode is a very famous game. That's why I'm even more impressed as I continue to watch episode 1 of the Queen's Gambit. Elizabeth takes on the school teacher again, e4, c6, d4, d5. This game is so famous, it's so beautiful because the checkmate is so rare. This is the Caro-Kann defense. Black gets 2 pawns in the center, just like white, but the point is, why put a pawn here? Because if white takes, then you can take back with that pawn, you've got backup. Elizabeth plays knight c3 to defend your center. School teacher takes, knight f6, and Elizabeth plays queen d3. But knight takes f6 check is actually a very trendy move nowadays, because after take, black has 4 pawns in front of his king. He's going to castle, this bishop is going to come to d6. And I cover a very famous game because Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, lost for the first time in over 2 years, the first time since 31st of July 2018. So I'm gonna link that game in the description below and in the top right corner of this video. You can check it out later. Now after knight f6, queen d3 played and e5, striking the center. This move doesn't look that great because it looks like it chucks a pawn, and when I saw this position on the board, I'm already hooked to this series, Queen's Gambit on Netflix, because this game is so famous and I just haven't seen it for a long time, and the research that is going into this show has been amazing so far. And guess what, it's only episode 1. e5, take, queen a5 check, because you got to get your pawn back. Bishop d2, queen takes e5, and it looks like there is a big problem for white because the queen and the knight are attacking white's knight. So you've got 2 attacking this, but white only has a defender. But here Elizabeth plays the brilliant move castle. Now it looks like the knight is going to fall. But if you saw episode 1, this is not a spoiler, but if you haven't and you are new to chess, just pause the video and find the brilliant tactic for white, and I'll give you a clue. The brilliant move is also the move that looks like it's the worst possible move. And sometimes that's why tactics can be so beautiful in chess. They just look so bad, they are so good, they look like they're losing, but they are winning. So pause the video, I will give you 5 seconds. Play the worst possible move. The winning move here is queen d8 check. Simply brilliant. They are following a famous game, Richard Reti against Sicilian Tartakower. Queen d8 check. The worst move on the board. It looks like you've just chucked your queen. But the follow-up is brilliant. Bishop g5, double check. That's why this works. You cannot take the bishop, because even though the bishop is taking the king and it looks like the queen and knight can take it, the rook is also checking. When there is a double check, you can only deal with the king's situation. You can't block this check because that's giving check. You can't block this check because the bishop is checking. So after bishop g5 check, there's only one move. The king has to move to c7 or to e8. If king e8, then we throw the rook in. Checkmate. Rook is protected by the bishop. The king cannot go forward because of the bishop. Now the other direction is simply more beautiful. After bishop g5 double check, king c7, and here checkmate in one move. There's only one check, and this is beautiful. Bishop d8 check. Wow. The king cannot take the bishop because of the rook. The king cannot go here or there because of the rook, and the king cannot come out because the bishop is really guarding the b6 square as well. And the king cannot go back anywhere because It's just being blocked in by its own pieces. So I am already hooked to this show. What an example to display in episode 1.